Now that I'm ready to start roofing, there are two important features of this roof that I want to take into consideration before preparing my starter panel. The first is the plumbing vent, and the second is the valley. I want to make sure that the location of the ribs on the panel that comes into the plumbing vent is such that I don't have a rib hitting smack in the middle, and I want to make sure that as both roofing sections come into the valley, that the ribs line up. So based on my calculations, the starter panel is going to be 14.5 inches. And as you can see, we have a D-style drip edge on the eave. We have a D-style on the rake. I'm going to remove this rib, and I'm going to fold 1 inch of the flat of the panel under so that it can clip into the D-style rake. There's a lot of cuts that are done at 1 inch. And rather than having to constantly take your tape measure out, something that I do is I mark my snips with a Sharpie at 1 inch, and that way I always have a line that I can cut to. I don't have to, as I said, I don't have to take my tape measure out, and it just makes for clean cuts, makes for uniform cuts, always at 1 inch deep, and there you have a huge time saver. Again, as always, my snips are marked at 1 inch, so I don't need to measure. I'm just snipping up to the Sharpie line. I'm going to leave this run wild, and I'm going to take off this side so that we can get our hemming tool in there. Just going to cut this off flush. This allows me to get the hemming tool locked on. So I've been working on the starter panel, and the first thing that I did was remove this rib so that I can hem the flat of the panel 1 inch so that we can clip into the D-style rake trim. Because I don't have a bender here, what I'm using is the Malco ER3 rolling tool or hemming tool, which is a fantastically easy piece of equipment to use. You can rent it from All American Steel for the day or for the week or for the project. Simply call your All American Steel representative and they can give you more information. Now I'm going to demonstrate how to use the Malco ER3 rolling tool to hem this panel, so we can go ahead and continue with the installation. I've set the depth of the ER3 to 1 inch. You can see that I'm making an initial score line. You can see how easily the panel is bending over. Now we have a 90-degree bend in the panel, and I'm going to finish the rest with a pair of hand seamers. So I'm just finishing the panel end now where the two overlaps, where the two hems meet. I'm just miter cutting this so that they meet up nicely in the corner. Maybe a little bit more. And now we're ready to install this panel. And we now have our starter panel that's been hemmed along the bottom and hemmed along the side so that it can clip into the eave and clip into the rake D-style trim. You can see the hem here and here along the side. So as we flip it over and we install it, we clip in to the eave, we clip into the rake, and you'll notice here that I've cut the mail back from the edge of the roof just a little bit. And the reason being that if this is hanging over at all, the next panel can't come up flush. So I always cut this back just a little bit to allow each successive panel the opportunity to come flush with the eave trim. Now I'm going to go ahead and install this panel using panhead fasteners along the screw fin, making sure not to over tighten them, and at the same time making sure that they aren't under tightened, because if they are, the head will dimple the next panel. Now that I've installed the first panel, I want to take a moment and talk to you about the edge finishing and about the fasteners. Because we're in the north and we have heavy snow and ice loads on the roof, I err on the side of caution, and I'm installing a fastener every 12 inches. And I've put two pretty close together here at the bottom. And what that does is it also ensures that if I'm going to be using snow guards, something like the S5 clamp or other types of snow guard systems on standing seam roofs, that my fastener spacing is done in accordance with the increased snow load in the snow guard zone. Here on the side, we've clipped into the rake, and I'm going to use a hand seamer to close this and make it nice. I'm using a 6-inch hand seamer by Malco, and I've put a rag between the panel and the seamer, just to make sure that I don't scratch the panel. And I'm just going up the panel, gradually seaming the roof. I've just used the Malco 6-inch seamer and a rag to close the hem over the D-style drip, both along the eave and on the rake. And we'll show a close-up shot just so you can see how nicely it's finished. And just to recap, we have fasteners every 12 inches, which in the north ensures that you're protected against the heavy snow and ice loads. And if you decide after the fact to install snow guards using the S5 clamp or a similar system, you're respecting the manufacturer's guidelines in terms of fastener placement. Thanks very much for watching, and if you have any questions, please reach out to your All American Steel rep or shoot us a note through social media.